I despise such prideful recordings, but after much prying and prodding from the populace of Vodar, I have decided to compose this audio record. I am a proud son of House Drakel, and as such I was born in Drakel, a coastal keep upon the western shore of Vardma. Among my clan we had bred many tacticians and shrewd negotiators, and I was no different in that regard. I was born to a family of merchants, though I was a sickly and thin little creature in those days, and each dawn I am thankful that I was not born in a more war-focused keep, or I may not have survived. I managed to prove my worth, however, as whenever merchants came from different clans, some of their vehicles would have been damaged or just ill cared for. Eager to prove myself, I served as an assistant to a local engineer by the name of Mreta. I watched him replace plasma coils, shape nanolaminate, and calibrate steering mechanisms. It was exciting to me in those days, and so I eagerly helped by passing tools, holding down problematic pieces, and following each request that was asked of me. Over the years of studying the life of a warrior whilst being the errand boy of Mreta, I was able to develop a tactical mind. Where I lacked in strength, I made up for in my intelligence. When I came of age, I was sent to the War College of Zolam to further increase my tactical knowledge and grow to be a loyal commander of the Covenant Empire. After graduation, however, I realized I could not live a meager soldier's life. I wanted to work on constructing and manipulating machines, so I was able to work towards becoming an engineer. After all, a warrior would always need a chariot to ride into battle. A shipmaster needed a ship to command, and no loyal soldier would ever be caught dead without a weapon. For many years I was happy. Sure, I was not seeking glory on the battlefield or commanding lances to slay the unclean enemies of the hierarchs, but by Chori themselves did I not weave such power. I walked among Yanme'e and Ungoy as they repaired space stations, recharged weaponry, and inspected faulty wiring. As time went on, I grew more and more curious about our blessed technology, and my curiosity consumed me. I knew how the machines I repaired worked, but I wanted to understand how they worked. And so I secretly began to try and build my own machines. After each job, I scavenged broken pieces and began my foray into the realm of inventing. It was always a risk on each job. No Sanghili should have such independence, especially with no Sanshayum oversight. I knew I shouldn't have done these things, but I did not care. I had to know. In my hubris, I was eventually caught and dragged to High Charity for my trial. I was accused of heresy, and I rightfully defended myself. I invoked my bloodline, speaking of the heroes of Drakel, Sanghili who dared to venture and learn throughout time, and how it was always for the greater good of the hegemony. By a stroke of luck, I was heard in my trial. While I was not pardoned, I was given a place in the Ministry of Fervent Intercession. The ministers assigned me to a zealot team as a tactical and technical advisor. One would think that was a promotion. I fought alongside the legendary zealots. I got to explore the tombs of the gods. No, that life was hell. I was not an equal amongst the zealots of intercession. I was a tool for them, expendable and replaceable. Dare I fall out of line and attempt to create, then I was a heretic once more. I got to hold and work with the divine, but I could not indulge in my curiosities. I cannot help but think back to my youth, when I had the freedom to peek and learn. Now I am returned to the life of a servant. No matter what I did, no matter the copious times I saved a Sanshayum from a fake relic being delivered, disabled security systems that would tear asunder the chosen of the prophets, or took charge against the unclean humans that dared to try and steal what we rightfully deserved. I was a plaything of bureaucrats. For the entirety of the Human Covenant War, I lived this nightmare. My voice stripped and my armor strings on a puppet. I wore a smile, but I was a prisoner. Then came the true face of the San Shayum. I was summoned to my laboratory on High Charity by a San Shayum worm by the name of Harg Sat, a lower minister. As I entered, I bore witness to 2 Jiralhanae guards and this curled insect to my face. He told me the fate of my species, and that he no longer required my services. He made one grave mistake, however. He chose to fight me on my turf. The lumbering brutes lunged at me, and in retaliation, I blinded them with my cape. I darted about the room, pulling free an incomplete concussion rifle, and slew my attackers. As the San Shayum worm was left bleeding before me, I took a deep breath, and then the very hells were unleashed. I could hear the nightmarish shrieks of the parasite as it began to engulf the holy city. But as I ran for my life, I looked back to see citizens of the Covenant being consumed by the chaos. For so many years, I was alone, and I could not abandon them to such a grim fate. I am but one Sangheili, but I managed to rescue 3 Sangheili security officers, a Tavoan, 3 Ungoi, and 2 Yan'e'e. We raced towards the spires of gifting, Jiralhanae lapdogs snarling at our heels as they too were pursued by twisted puppets of the parasite. We managed to hijack a DSC-class support vessel and take off. We were hardly a skeleton crew, but thanks to my station among the Ministry of Fervent Intercession, I was able to hail the fleet of Retribution. But I did not stay to fight. With civilians on board, and a sliver of fear claiming my heart, we fled. The horrors of the Great Schism came and went, and the crew I had forged proclaimed their allegiance to me. I had never been so joyful. I was free of my shackles, and it felt glorious. A new galaxy had been forged by legends. Sure, there were fools that still believed the lies of the San Shayum, but I did not care. I had my armor reforged. I tore apart the Zealots' holy scriptures and plates, and I gave myself the visage of the glorious Field Marshal, not out of envy of my old masters, but as a display of terror towards the Covenant remnants. One of the mightiest ranks was now being wielded by a Sangheili who lacks the physical power, but mental power beyond their comprehension. The moment I was consumed by rage and a thirst for revenge. But as I worked, I felt scientific equations and theories, long dormant, flow back into my thoughts and into my hands. And by the end, I knew what kind of Sangheili I wanted to be. I did not want to be a bloodthirsty commander. I wanted to fill the void that the San Shayum left, the void of scientific progress. And so, with crew in tow, we set off into the umbral unknown of a galaxy freed from terror. For many years, my crew and I wandered the endless reaches of space, stopping at colonies or discarded battlegrounds, stripping down the lost and using it to compose new miracles. Such was the birth of the Blade of Wisdom, my beloved research vessel. In that time, I had built multiple harnesses for many different scenarios, but I had taken a liking to the Outrider harness for combat scenarios, and the Field Marshal for more diplomatic or political incidents. The year was 2555, when I realized I was no better than a Kikya pirate. I had very little in terms of political clout or protection in the Covenant fringe, and the warrior blood of a Sangheili called to me. I decided that my crew and I would request to join Thel 'Vadam's new faction, the Swords of Sanghelios. Thankfully, they seemed eager to have scientific minds join with them, so that we could ascend to greater heights now that the San Shayum no longer barred our way. I returned home to Durakel, learning they too had joined the Arbiter's Alliance. And so I walked away, now given a stable environment to hone my craft. Joy filled my heart as I walked among my kin once more, now able to share my possibly crazy ideas. The sky was the limit! In my new post, a group of humans approached me. The Swords had appointed me as an escort to these curious creatures, our foes that we now called friends. I was elated to help, as I was able to swap theories and notes with the various scientists. Their thirst for knowledge was comforting, and they inquired about our far-flung northern neighbors, Vodar. I gave them all I could, based on our own historical records. As we studied and read together, a unanimous decision was made. We had to go to the ancient ruins within Vodar for further study! And so, that is when I approached the court of our glorious Kaidan, the Kai Vodar. The journey was long and harsh, but we were undeterred as I orated before the Elder Council of Vodar, stating our peaceful and explorative intent, and by jury's luck, my words managed to sway the nobility. I was allowed to guide the humans through the ancient ruins. With a spring in my step, we marched through the frozen tundra that was Vodar. But something was wrong. My scales felt as though they were being clawed at as we finally arrived within the ruins. Before I could say anything, one of my men was cut in twain by an invisible attacker. It was an ambush! Our attackers revealed themselves, and I realized whomst we were dealing with. We were facing the zealous followers of Luro Taralumi. I even recognized the zealot whom was leading this charge against us, a foul cretin by the name of Mrok Drantaki. He leapt from atop a crumbling balcony, bloodlust in his eyes, as he prepared to carve the humans in the style of a butcher. But I had sworn an oath to protect knowledge. I leapt before his blade, drawing my own as we clashed. I wish I could tell you that it was a glorious battle, but it was a swift defeat. There was a reason he was made a zealot. I held against his assault for mere moments before the devout Ignoramus was able to spot an opening in my defenses, and rent my right arm asunder. As I laid bleeding in the snow, the humans tried to drag me to safety. I knew we were overpowered. I reached for my communications unit and shouted it into any and all radio frequencies that could hear me. I begged for help, not for myself, but to save the human researchers. Despite the loss in numbers, we were able to bunker down in a half-ruined temple of Urs. Even with one arm, I fought on as hard as I could. Tarantaki's forces closed in deeper and deeper, until we saw his foul minions begin to fall to a barrage of plasma? Cresting over the rubble, I saw my saviors, Major Thesk Daram and Kaidan Nakai Vodar, backed by the loyal soldiers of the Swords of Sanghelios. Now we had a fighting chance, and I slipped into unconsciousness with a grin upon my mandibles. I was revived from unconsciousness 3 days later in the medical ward, where I awoke to the sight of 2 medics and a Huragok healer. They were a rare breed that could mend flesh as their more common kin mend foreigner metals. They told me my arm was beyond recovery, and that the humans were returned safely to their leaders. The Kaidan appeared and confessed that he'd considered letting me die at the foot of the temple. He's somewhat of a traditionalist when it comes to honorable deaths, but the humans convinced him to treat my wounds. I would have joined my ancestors, were it not for him and his warriors. A debt of life was owed. I pledged my services to him and to his clan. He was skeptical, almost as if my flowery language reminded him of a grim time. But after reviewing my service record in the Covenant and witnessing a sliver of what I could offer with the Blade of Wisdom, he made me his scientific advisor, granting me access to a laboratory within his own keep. And since that fateful day, I have lived in this frozen metropolis. Every day feels like a new adventure, whether it is the politics of a court, the erratic successes of my inventions, or lack thereof, debates and conversations with the Major, or the rare engagement with an enemy. Life is good. I am honored to have what could be called a very strange family. Not by blood, but by the bonds we have forged together. Yes, Nakai can confuse me with the ways of his people, or how the Major pesters me with a soldier's perspective of might. But I am grateful to just feel free. Thinking back, I hope that we can slay the tyrant construct that tightens her grip over the galaxy. I refuse to allow anyone to be oppressed as I was, as anyone whom served the Covenant was. Now, let me get back to work. I have a wonderful idea for weaponizing gravitational fields to pull apart Prometheans by their floaty bits. May Jori's light guide thee. Come now, Ross. We have much work to do.